Good evening and welcome to the European Parliament. We are live from Strasbourg for an important week of debate and votes at this plenary in our September sitting of plenary. I'm Simon McKegney, Head of Communications with the Green EFA Group, and I'll be hosting this live Q&A on the energy crisis and energy poverty, energy prices, the biggest thing on everyone's lips at the moment at EU level and all across Europe. I'm joined today by two MEPs. On my left, I have Kim van Sparentak, a member of the European Parliament Committee for Internal Market and Consumer Protection, and she's also a member of the Employment and Social Affairs Committee, and she was rapporteur on a housing report recently. So everything around energy efficiency for housing and energy poverty is a big topic on Kim's agenda. We also have Michael Bloss, member of the Committee on Energy, and he was recently the shadow rapporteur, so following very closely the energy trading scheme, the ETS file, as it made its way through the institutions. For those watching online, we already have received a lot of questions, but please do leave any questions in the comments, in the chat, and we'll try to pick them up during the session. We have quite a crisis on our hands. We have huge bills that citizens across Europe are facing. There's been a suite of measures announced at national level, big announcements due in the next 2 days from the Commission President. Why are profits and prices skyrocketing? That's my first question to Michael. And secondly, we have a question from Sophie, which is related. Why do we have a system where gas prices set the overall price in our energy system in Europe?
Yeah, the two things are related. So why are the prices skyrocketing? Of course, it's because of the war of Russia against Ukraine and this kind of fossil inflation that we have. So fossil is getting more expensive, and that pushes all the prices up. So the best thing, of course, is to move away from fossils. But in the electricity market, it's basically like this, and it's like on every market. It's a kind of a liberalized market system. So there is a huge demand for electricity, but only some that actually produce electricity. So everyone that produces electricity tries to sell it on the highest price possible. And this is currently the gas price. So therefore, the gas price sets the price for electricity, but it's actually not specific to electricity market. It's just market economy that works like this. So what we have to do now is to check how we can adapt it so that not all of these huge profits are being made.
And when it comes to huge profits, we have the other side of the coin is poverty on a big scale. And it's September. It's still a beautiful day here in Strasbourg, 20-something degrees, but the winter is very much coming. Walk us through exactly what that could mean for people across Europe when it comes to what energy poverty is in reality.
Yeah, so when we're talking about energy poverty, we're both talking about people who are not able to adequately heat their homes in winter. But already in this summer, we saw that there were a lot of people who weren't able to afford the bills to adequately cool down their houses over summer. And this group of people who live in energy poverty was already quite a big group before the war in Ukraine and this rise in energy prices. But we see that this group is rising. We see that there's more and more people who are urgently calling for action because they are not able to heat up their home. They don't do anything drastic. They don't have, a private swimming pool in their basement. These are people who are not able to afford the bills that they need to have light, to have internet, and to heat up the rooms that they actually need to live in. We see this is what we call energy poverty, and we see that it's rising, and we need to take action because people will in the end be cut off energy or even lose their homes when it gets even further and they get in huge debts.
So we have long-term solutions that we'll come to in a minute, but because it is so imminent now, the winter, can we come with solutions for the next month or 2 months or 3 months? And what are they?
Yeah, I think one thing is that if we see how it works right now is that fossil companies, oil, gas companies, they make huge profits. And the poorer people, they are paying for this profit. So it's currently kind of a redistribution from the poor to the rich. And that's completely the opposite of what we want. So we need to really curb these super profits from fossil countries or companies. So what we want to do is actually we turn it around. So we take the profits from the fossil companies and then we redistribute it back to those who need it most, those in energy poverty. But that needs some legislation. Some is already proposed by the Commission. But yeah, the situation we are in is completely absurd in terms of providing for those who really need it. And also for the climate, because if you have huge profits for the fossils, no one will invest into renewables, and that also has to stop.
That is another question from Sophie. Why do we accept that energy companies make super profits? I think I know the answer to that one.
Yeah, so I guess we as Greens, we don't accept it. That is very clear. Like that stands above everything. We don't accept these super profits, and we think that we need taxation. That we need to make sure that these super over profits, as they're also sometimes called, that we have proper taxation for that, and that we indeed redistribute the wealth to the people who urgently need it. And I think it's important that when we're talking about the rise in energy prices, we also see that everything else is becoming more expensive. The people who trade in grain, for example, they have had increased profits. Supermarkets have increased profits. And right now it's really important that we target those that make a lot of profits, and especially the ones that pollute the most, such as certain energy companies. And indeed, we funnel that back to the people. And one of the proposals that my party, the Dutch Green Party, did, and also some other Green parties I know have done it, is that we funnel this money back in ensuring that everyone can still heat their house, can still, have the basic energy they need for a reduced price. And then indeed, if you have, your indoor swimming pool, for that you will need a market price. And I think that is something very targeted that we can do to make sure that no one will literally stand in the cold this winter.
Well, sticking to your area of expertise, Kim, on housing, it's been quite politically difficult for everyone to say, turn down your radiator a few percent, turn off lights, when you see the big profits of companies and companies not, paying their fair share. But at the same time, we still have a need for energy efficiencies to reduce demand somehow. We have a question from Chris. How can we scale up demand reduction measures and make them a priority?
Well, there are several initiatives also coming from the European level. For example, the renovation wave. This is really a proposal to make sure we ramp up renovation of houses. But it still seems very hard to really target the people that need it the most. And that's why I think there is a key for social housing corporations, and to really let them lead the renovation for the people who live in social housing. These are people who are not able often, to get a heat pump, to get solar panels and profit from that, because they live in social housing. They're not even allowed to do it, and maybe they also don't have the means for that. So that's why it's very important that social housing corporations get the right funding and the right policies in place, so that they can start with ramping up renovating all these houses where the people who are getting into the most problems right now, because often this is low quality housing, can actually benefit and won't have to be in the cold this winter.
And as you are also a member of the German Green Party, there are initiatives coming from Berlin around a €9 train ticket and other ways of reducing demand for fossil fuels. Are there any other bright ideas that aren't sort of punitive in the sense of people having to turn off lights and close windows?
The German Greens, they always have bright ideas, but there's maybe also some ideas that are just generally on the table. First is, I think that government buildings, public buildings, also businesses, they can also reduce their temperature. So it's not, those that live in the houses that anyway do not hold the heat inside, but like all of these buildings in the public, the business sector, they can reduce. And I think what's important is we have so much waste of energy. I mean, that the Eiffel Tower or the Brandenburg Gate is put in light through the whole throughout the night is something where we waste a lot of energy. All of these advertisements that are on throughout the night, I mean, we can just close it down. Yeah. And I think one important thing is still that also we, as the European Union, we should use our power as a European Union to negotiate on the world market. Currently, Germany and Poland and everyone is like asking for gas and push the price up. If we do it together, we can bring the prices down. So, but that needs an agreement of all of us. So if we're strong as Europe, we can do this.
Basically, what we need is solidarity with the people who are in the most dire needs now, but also solidarity amongst EU countries. This is something that we really have to foster right now.
So looking a little bit more long term now, before we get into what's coming in the next few days in terms of the package of measures, we have a very straightforward question from Turlock. He's asking, should we talk about nuclear energy?
We shouldn't. And there was a very thorough analysis, for instance, in Germany, which basically said that it will bring prices down only by 0.6%, because we do not have the fuel. I mean, there's just almost no fuel left in the German nuclear power plants. So if we want to have new fuel, that will arrive in 1 year or in half a year's time. It wouldn't help us. And all of the security checks have to be done. And that will also take half a year at least. So it's a bit problematic. Also, one of the big problems why we have this crisis is that more than half of the French nuclear power plants are down now because of the climate crisis. So it really doesn't help us. Those who say we need to build new nuclear power stations, like this is a complete mystical idea, because this will be done maybe in 15 years or so. So I don't think nuclear is the solution.
I think while we mentioned the climate crisis, we should have brought it in maybe at the very start, because we've just had an incredibly catastrophic summer of fires and droughts and rivers that you could walk across for the first time in history, and the worst drought in 500 years. Do we have is this a moment where we could drop the ball on our climate ambition, because people are so frightened about maybe we need to go back to fossil fuels in some way, and we move away from our climate ambition entirely?
I think it's actually rather the opposite. If we would have acted actually faster, if we would have massively invested in renewable energy, if we would have already said no, fossil fuels are not the future, we wouldn't be in this dire situation where Putin is actually able to use the gas prices and use the income of gas to Europe against us. So I think it's rather the opposite. And also one of the very important things we need to do for the climate crisis is, reduce the energy, reduce the amount of energy that we're using. One of the only ups maybe in here is that we can, kill two flies with one stone. But because by reducing the amount of energy we're using in Europe, we can actually, push Putin away, and we can also combat the climate crisis.
So to the package then, to this week, to why we're here, a few things are happening. We have von der Leyen's big speech at the State of the Union on Wednesday, some package proposals due out tomorrow. By chance, we have the Fit for 55 files on the renewables and on energy efficiency coming through. I start with whoever wants to start. What should people expect for the next 2 days or so when it comes to initiatives from the EU on how to solve what's happening?
Yeah, I think there are quite some good proposals actually on the table. For instance, there's this idea to have a special levy for fossil companies, so that we take the profits from gas and oil companies and actually use it to support those who need it. That's really positive. I hope it really comes. There are more things also on the electricity market to make sure that the profits that are made there are also distributed, and gas is not anymore the provider of energy that sets the price. There are some other measures on liquidity support. So lots of good stuff, also like the price cap on Russian gas or others. Now, I think what is really problematic and has been forgotten ever since is that we also need to look a little bit on the long term, because we could have done this in March already. And then they said, oh, we'll come later. Then we had something in May. Now we are in this problematic situation. And everybody said in the beginning, oh, but this will not have us in winter. Yes, but we have also next winter the same problem. So for instance, what Kim just said, or there's this initiative that every new house has a solar rooftop on it. All of these things, they should come now in 2023. And I'm not sure that we overcome this short-term thinking in this crisis right now.
Another straightforward question from Costas, I don't know if we can answer it or not, but why doesn't, he asks, why doesn't money from the EU go directly to citizens so that they can make their houses and businesses sustainable? That's probably a good question for you, Kim.
Yeah, well, first of all, the EU doesn't have the bank numbers of every European citizen, and there's a lot of European citizens. So first of all, it's just, it would be a very big bureaucratic operation. But secondly, it's also really hard to, from the EU, know exactly what people need on the local level. That's really hard to do. And that's why usually the EU opts for looking at a member state level or even a local level to redistribute the money, and then see if you can also do things that are more, community based. Because if we would do everything on a private level, every big investment, then also we don't create a community-based energy system, for example, where a neighborhood can invest together in renewable energy. So there's many reasons, but I think, the number one is there's just a lot of European citizens, and it would be really hard to reach all of them.
Okay, a similar vein from Wanda. She asks, do we need a true energy union anchored in a new treaty, for instance?
Absolutely. A new treaty and a new energy union is important. By the way, Germany also doesn't have all of the bank account numbers, but that's something else. But what is happening also currently, or what we need for a renewable system, is to really connect all over Europe. So if there is like clouds over Germany and no wind, maybe there is wind in Spain, we can take it from Spain. But currently, it's not very good connected. So we need to connect all of it to make a renewable energy system possible. So yeah, that's I think it's would be great in a new treaty. I also don't want to wait for a new treaty, so we need to push for this as fast as possible, because with this we can actually be independent of all. Most of the energy providers from the outside are dictatorships, and we do not want to be blackmailed by any of them, and therefore this is the only way forward. And this is our resource. We don't have gas so much, we don't have oil, we don't need it. We need to rely on our resources. This is wind and sun.
Very good. Last question. It's actually a question from me, just because I would like to know. When it comes to the windfall tax, how do we guarantee that those profits raised go to citizens who really need it? That's quite a tricky legal thing to jump through for the European Commission when it comes to competences at EU level and national level. Is there a plan up von der Leyen's sleeve for this, do you think?
I mean, there are recommendations, but certainly it's not. It cannot be enforced legally. That's also a little bit the problems that I have with like giving things to the national level altogether, because I don't want to give Orban the possibility to just channel the money to his friends, and then those who are in opposition do not get anything. So things are possible. Like what we want is a European fund, like a climate social fund that actually puts more explicit into law how money can be spent. But the Commission is under such pressure. I don't expect it, but I think that's something that we need for the future, because honestly, this crisis, unfortunately, will stay with us for some time. So we need to have really also some measures that can work in the future.
And I think, when we're in a crisis, I'm talking about a crisis, the Commission has competence, the EU has competences to act in case of a big crisis. And also, of course, we have learned from the COVID pandemic and the height of the COVID pandemic that things are possible. We came with money to make sure that not a single SME would fall over and not a single company had to fall over because they had to close down during the COVID crisis. And I think it's very important that we take that same approach when we're not looking at businesses, but looking at people. We have to make sure not a single person and not a single family in the EU will get into energy poverty and, will have to suffer and sit in the cold with all the devastating impacts that might have.
So last thing, if people are watching this and they are worried about their winter prices, what do you have to say to them for our work at EU level?
I think honestly, we have to be honest also as politicians, and I think we cannot promise that this will not be difficult. This will be very difficult, and I think then we will come to situations where, for instance, Russia has not delivered gas to Ukraine, so in winter they will also need to have some gas. Maybe we need to share with them. We will come to a situation where especially the member states in the south, that do not have so much money, they cannot manage to support their poor anymore. So we need to have some level of European solidarity. But that's the point. Like, we can do it, as Kim said, but we need to be really in solidarity with each other. Then it can be managed. But that requires really from every member state, from governments, also from all of us, being ready to actually contribute, and then we can manage.
Yeah, and I think you can count on us as Greens that we will try to make sure that, you know, at least we try to take care of the people who need it the most. That the people who are worried how they will, you know, if they have to choose between heating or eating, that we will try to find the most targeted approach, not some blanket approach where everyone will benefit a little bit, but in the end, the people who actually need it, you know, don't benefit at all. But that we're really looking and calling for targeted approaches everywhere, so on the EU level, but also the national and the local level, to make sure that we help the people who need it.
So solidarity is the key word, I think, for this winter across the political spectrum at EU level, national level, and between countries and everyone else in between. So I think we'll just have to keep that hopeful note as we head into a serious winter ahead. Thanks to both of you for coming and for being here, and good luck with the rest of your plenary week. Thanks all for watching, and you can follow us on Twitter for highlights for the next week in our September plenary. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
I have no idea if the mic's